Please, the bad man is coming. Please don't let him take me back. 5-year-old Emma Dawson stood barefoot in the doorway of a Hells Angels clubhouse, blood smearing from her torn feet onto the floor. Her white sundress was ripped. Her body shook so hard, her teeth rattled. Behind her, a gray minivan idled in the parking lot. The driver's door was open. The man inside was already walking toward her. 14 bikers stared at the trembling child. Not one of them moved. Not yet. But something ancient and dangerous had just woken up in that room. And what these men discovered next would expose a nightmare no one saw coming. Before we go any further, subscribe to our channel and follow. Comment your city below so we can see how far her story travels. Now, let's begin. The door of the iron forge slammed open so hard the wooden frame cracked. Every voice in the room stopped. Every head turned. Every hand tightened around whatever it was holding. A beer bottle, a pool cue, a cigarette. A little girl stood in the doorway, barefoot, shaking, a white sundress torn at the hem, filthy with dirt and something darker. Her blonde hair was tangled and matted to one side of her face. Her knees were scraped raw. The bottoms of her feet left red smears on the floor as she stumbled forward. She couldn't have been more than 5 years old. "Please," she gasped. Her voice was so small it almost disappeared in the room. "The bad man is coming. Please don't let him take me back, please." Nobody moved. Jack Iron Hand Mercer set down his beer glass. 59 years old, silver blonde hair pulled back, a beard streaked with gray, hands covered in scars and faded tattoos. He'd been president of the Hells Angels Montana chapter for 23 years, 2 tours in Iraq as a Marine before that. He'd seen a lot of things walk through that door. Cops, rival clubs, drunks with death wishes. Never this. Never a child looking like she just crawled out of a nightmare. Danny Ghost Sullivan was the first to stand. His chair scraped against the concrete floor. 38, lean, quiet, former Army Ranger, 3 combat deployments. He'd held dying men in his arms overseas and never flinched. But the terror in this child's eyes made something crack in his chest. He crouched down slowly, making himself small. "Hey there, sweetheart. You're safe in here. Nobody's gonna hurt you. Can you tell me your name?" Emma. She was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. "Emma Dawson. My mommy's name is Karen. My daddy's name is Ben. He builds houses. He has a beard and a scar on his hand from a saw." She kept looking back at the door. Her whole body flinched every time the light shifted. "Please call my daddy. Please." The man. He gave me candy at the park, and it made everything go blurry, and then I was in his car, and I didn't know where I was. And he kept driving and driving and... Her voice broke. She started sobbing. Not a child's whimper, a deep, broken sound that came from somewhere inside her that no 5-year-old should know exists. "How did you get away, Emma?" Danny asked gently. He stopped for gas. I saw the door was open. I ran. I just ran. I didn't know where. I just ran until I saw this building. "You did the right thing. You did exactly the right thing." "Is he going to find me?" Danny looked at Jack. Jack's jaw was tight. His eyes had gone cold in a way that the men in this room recognized. It was the look he got before things got very bad for someone. "No," Jack said. His voice was low and steady. "He's not." The door opened again. A man walked in. Mid-40s, clean-shaven, brown hair neatly combed. He wore a blue polo shirt and khaki shorts, a fitness watch on his wrist, white sneakers. He looked like he coached Little League. He looked like the kind of man your mother would trust to watch her grandchildren. His smile was warm, sheepish, perfectly practiced. "Oh, thank goodness," he said, shaking his head with a little laugh. "I am so sorry about this, gentleman. My daughter has the most incredible imagination. We were playing a game in the car. She wanted to pretend she was being rescued, and she took it way too seriously. You know how kids are at this age." He took a step toward Emma. She screamed. It wasn't a tantrum. It wasn't a child being dramatic. It was a sound that came from the deepest, most primal part of a human being, the sound of prey recognizing its predator. Every man in that room felt it in his bones. Emma scrambled backward and crashed into Jack's legs. She grabbed fistfuls of his jeans and pressed herself behind him, making herself as small as possible. Her whole body was vibrating with terror. "He's not my daddy," she cried. "He's not my daddy. My daddy has brown hair and a beard. My daddy has a scar on his hand. My daddy calls me Emma Bear. This man calls me Sweetie and Honey, and it makes my skin crawl. He's not my daddy. He's not." The room changed. 14 men, most of them veterans, most of them fathers, some of them grandfathers. Something ancient and ferocious ignited in every chest. That instinct, that wire buried so deep in human DNA that nothing can cut it. The instinct to protect a child. Jack's hand came down on Emma's shoulder, gentle but immovable. "Stay behind me, darling." He looked at the man. His voice dropped to a register that made the air heavier. "You're not going anywhere." The man's smile tightened, just barely. "Sir, I appreciate the concern, I really do. But this is a family matter. Emma has behavioral issues. Her therapist has documented—" "What's your name?" The question came from Hector Bull Ramirez, the club's sergeant-at-arms. 6'5", 280, arms like bridge cables. He had moved to block the front door, and he'd done it so quietly that nobody noticed until he was already there. Craig Dawson. "When's the girl's birthday?" The man paused. 1 second, maybe less, but every man in the room caught it. "March 15th. Behind Jack, Emma whispered, "My birthday is October 3rd. Mommy always makes me a pumpkin cake because it's almost Halloween." Silence. Jack stared at the man who called himself Craig Dawson. "Sit down." "Excuse me?" "I said sit down." "This is absurd. I'm her father. You're a bunch of—" "Choose your next words very carefully." The man's eyes darted around the room, calculating. 14 men, one exit blocked by Bull, the back door 30 feet away. His smile was still there, but it was slipping. The mask was cracking. "You can't keep me here. This is false imprisonment. I'll have every one of you arrested." "Funny," Jack said. "You should use the word kidnapping. See how it fits." From the back room, Maggie Holt's voice carried clear and sharp. Former Army intelligence, the only woman in the chapter. She had a phone pressed to her ear, and she was already talking. 911, I need to report a possible child abduction. We have the child safe at the Iron Forge, Route 87, south of Billings. The suspect is a white male, mid-40s, blue polo shirt, driving a gray minivan. Montana plates, 7 Alpha Foxtrot 391. "Yes, ma'am. We'll hold him right here." The man's face went white. "This is a misunderstanding," he said. His voice had changed. The warmth was gone. What was underneath was thin, desperate, cornered. "You're making a huge mistake. Do you have any idea who I am? I have lawyers. I'll shut this place down. I'll have your charter revoked. He bolted. It happened fast. He ripped sideways and lunged for the back door, moving with a speed that surprised everyone. He was athletic. He was quick. He'd done this before, running from situations, escaping tight corners. He made it 4 steps. Danny hit him low, a perfect tackle honed by years of Ranger training. The man's body folded and slammed into the pool table. Bull was there half a second later. Jimmy Two-Stroke Kowalski grabbed his arms. 3 large men drove him face first into the floor and pinned him. "Get off me! Get off! I'll sue every one of you! His wallet flew out of his pocket during the struggle. It hit the floor and burst open, contents scattering across the concrete. Bull picked it up. He started pulling things out one by one. "Craig Dawson, huh?" He held up a driver's license. Then another. Then another. "That's interesting, because this one says Nathan Briggs, and this one says Paul Whitfield, and this one says Stephen Hartley." He looked down at the man pinned to the floor. How many names you got, friend? The man stopped struggling, but it was what else fell from the wallet that killed every sound in the room. Heavy-duty zip ties, industrial strength, a small roll of silver duct tape, and a prescription bottle with no label. No pharmacy sticker, no doctor's name, just small, white pills rattling around inside. Emma started crying again, deep, shuddering sobs that shook her whole body. She buried her face in Jack's leg. He made me eat one of those, she choked out. At the park, he said it was a vitamin. He said all kids take them. It made everything go fuzzy and my leg stopped working. And then I was in his car and I couldn't move and I couldn't scream and... Okay, sweetheart. Jack's voice was steady, but his hand was trembling on her shoulder. You don't have to say any more. He looked at Danny. Something passed between them. Something silent and old. The kind of communication that only happens between men who have been in combat. Check his vehicle, Jack said. Danny was already moving. He pushed through the back door into the parking lot. The gray minivan sat 20 yards away. Engine off now. Driver's door still open from where the man had chased Emma inside. It wasn't locked. Danny pulled open the sliding side door. He stood there for 10 seconds. Then he stepped back. He put his hands on his knees. He breathed. Long, controlled breaths, the kind they teach you in the military when you need to keep functioning despite what your body wants to do. Then he walked back inside. His face told Jack everything. Boss. Danny's voice was strange, flat, like he was holding something down with both hands. You need to see this. Tell me. The middle seats are gone. There's a mattress on the floor. Handcuffs bolted to the frame. Small ones, Jack. Child-sized. There's a cooler with juice boxes and granola bars and more of those pills. There's a stuffed bear that's been used before. It's stained. It's not new. The room was so quiet you could hear the clock on the wall. And there's a phone mounted on the dashboard, Danny continued. A messaging app is open. The last conversation, he stopped, swallowed. The last conversation reads like a shipping manifest. Package acquired, ETA 5 hours. Buyer confirmed, full payment on delivery. And then, he looked at Jack. This one matches the request. Blonde, blue eyes, healthy, premium price. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The only sound was Emma's quiet sobbing against Jack's leg. She wasn't being kidnapped. She was being sold. Jack closed his eyes for 3 seconds. When he opened them, 20 years of grief and rage had crystallized into something cold and precise. Bull, Jimmy, get him into the back room. Make sure he doesn't hurt himself before the police arrive. They dragged Nathan Briggs, or whatever his real name was, across the floor. He was pleading now. The arrogance was gone. The threats were gone. What was left was small and pathetic. Listen to me. Listen. You don't understand. These people, the people I work for, they'll kill me. If you let me go, I'll disappear. Nobody has to know. I can pay you. 50,000, 100,000. I can get it. Just let me... Get him out of my sight, Jack said. The back room door closed. The pleading became muffled, then silent. Jack looked down at Emma. She was still clinging to his leg. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her nose was running. She looked up at him with an expression no child should ever have. The expression of someone who has seen the worst of what humans can do and is trying to understand why. Is the bad man going away? She whispered. Jack crouched down to her level. He's never going to touch you again, I promise. Do you really promise? I really promise. Promise, promise? Something twisted in Jack's chest. Promise, promise. Emma studied his face for a long time. Then she reached out and touched the patch on his leather vest. The Hells Angels insignia. The winged skull that had terrified generations of people. My mommy says bikers are scary, she said. Your mommy's not wrong. But you help me. Yeah. So maybe you're like a scary angel. Like an angel who looks like a monster so the real monsters are afraid of him. Jack Mercer, 59 years old, 2 tours in Iraq, president of the most notorious motorcycle club in America, felt his eyes burn. Yeah, sweetheart, something like that. The sirens were getting closer now. Red and blue flashes began dancing through the windows. Maggie appeared from the back room, phone still in hand. Her face was tight. Jack, I ran the plate number and the names from his IDs through every database I could access in 10 minutes. And? Nathan Briggs, real name, wanted in 4 states: Colorado, Wyoming, Nebraska, Idaho. Multiple child abductions over 5 years. The FBI has been hunting him for 18 months. Jack stared at her. 18 months. And Jack, the messages on that phone, the contacts, there are 12 different numbers, coded conversations going back over a year. This isn't one man operating alone. What are you saying? Maggie looked at Emma, then back at Jack. Her voice dropped low enough that only he could hear. I'm saying this is a network, organized, funded, protected. Briggs is a foot soldier. Someone else is running this thing. And based on what I'm seeing, they've been doing it for years. The first police cruiser pulled into the parking lot, then a second, then an unmarked sedan. Jack looked at the back room where Briggs was being held, looked at Emma, still trembling, still gripping his jeans, looked at his brothers, 14 men in leather who the world had written off as criminals. Everyone listen up, he said. When the cops get here, we tell them exactly what happened. Everything. We cooperate fully. And then? Danny asked. Jack's jaw tightened. His hand rested on Emma's head, gentle as a father's touch. And then we have church. Because if that phone says what Maggie thinks it says, there are other kids out there right now, tonight, waiting for someone to come for them. He paused. Every man in the room was watching him. And I'll be damned if that someone isn't us. The police came through the door with their weapons drawn. The next hour was a blur. Statements, evidence bags, detectives asking the same questions 6 different ways. State troopers arrived, then 2 FBI agents in dark suits who spoke in careful, measured sentences. Emma was examined by paramedics. A child trauma specialist arrived and spoke to her in a soft, patient voice. They wrapped her in a shock blanket and gave her apple juice and a granola bar that she wouldn't eat because the bad man had given her granola bars, and she couldn't look at them without shaking. Through all of it, every question, every examination, every unfamiliar face, Emma Dawson refused to let go of Jack Mercer's hand. I want to stay with the motorcycle man, she told the paramedic who tried to move her to the ambulance. He promised. Promise. The FBI agent in charge was a woman named Special Agent Diana Reeves. Sharp eyes, no-nonsense voice. She pulled Jack aside near the bar while Emma dozed in a chair, still holding on to 2 of his fingers even in her sleep. Mr. Mercer, the man you apprehended tonight, Nathan Briggs, is connected to one of the largest child trafficking operations we've been tracking in the Pacific Northwest. We've been trying to locate him for 18 months. 18 months, Jack repeated, while he was out grabbing kids off playgrounds. Reeves's jaw tightened. What you found in that vehicle, the messages, the contacts, this could be the break we've been waiting for. You may have saved more children than just Emma. May have, could be, might. Jack shook his head. How about definitely will? There will be questions about how Briggs was subdued. The bruises on his face. He fell, tripped over a chair, clumsy guy. Reeves stared at him. Then she reached into her jacket and pulled out a business card. If you or your people hear anything at all about this network, you call me directly. Not local PD, not the sheriff, me. Jack took the card. Why not local? Because I don't know who I can trust yet, and neither should you. That sentence hung in the air like smoke. Emma's parents arrived at dusk. A blue pickup truck came screaming into the parking lot so fast it nearly took out 2 police cruisers. The passenger door flew open before the truck fully stopped, and a woman tumbled out, running, screaming, "Emma! Emma! Emma!" The little girl's eyes snapped open. For one horrible second, confusion crossed her face. Where am I? Is it real? Is the bad man? And then she saw her mother, and the confusion exploded into something pure. Mommy! Karen Dawson collapsed to her knees on the gravel and gathered her daughter into her arms, and the sound that came out of her was not a word. It was not a scream. It was not a cry. It was something older than language. The sound of a mother who has spent 63 hours believing her child is dead, discovering that she is alive. Ben Dawson was right behind her, tall, broad shoulders, brown hair, a full beard, calloused hands, a scar across his right hand, from a table saw, just like Emma said. Everything she said was true. He fell to his knees beside his wife and daughter and wrapped his arms around both of them, and his whole body shook. My baby, Karen sobbed. My baby, my baby, my baby. Mommy, I was so scared, but the motorcycle man saved me. He promised promise, and he didn't let the bad man take me. Ben looked up at Jack, really looked at him, past the leather, past the tattoos, past the Hell's Angels patch and the hard eyes and the scarred knuckles. He saw something most people never bothered to look for. You saved our daughter, he said. She saved herself. She ran. She asked for help. Bravest kid I've ever seen. Ben stood, his voice cracked. We thought, the police said, they told us to prepare. He couldn't finish. He held out his hand. Jack shook it. I don't know how to thank you, Ben said. I'll spend the rest of my life trying. Don't need thanks. Just take your little girl home. Let her be a kid again. Karen stood, still holding Emma so tight the child squeaked. She looked at Jack through ruined mascara, and 63 hours of hell transformed into relief. Why? She asked. Why did you help her? You don't know us. Jack was quiet for a long time. The parking lot seemed to hold its breath. I had a daughter, he said finally. The words came from somewhere he usually kept locked. Her name was Sophie. She'd be 32 now. She was taken when she was 12. Grabbed walking home from the library on a Tuesday afternoon. Karen's hand flew to her mouth. They found her 4 days later, Jack said. His voice was steady. His eyes were not. I wasn't there to protect her. I've lived with that every single day for 20 years. Every kid I help, every predator I stop. It doesn't bring Sophie back. But it means she mattered. Her memory protects kids like Emma. Karen handed Emma to Ben. Then she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around Jack Mercer, this stranger, this biker, this terrifying man with a broken heart, and held on. Thank you, she whispered against his shoulder. Thank you for saving our baby, and I'm so sorry about yours. Jack stood rigid for a moment. He wasn't used to this, wasn't prepared for it. Then slowly, carefully, his arms came up and he hugged her back. Emma, watching from her father's arms, reached over and patted Jack's shoulder. Don't be sad, Mr. Jack. Sophie's watching you, and she's really, really proud. Jack wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. Yeah, I can tell, because she sent me to your door. I didn't know where to go, and something inside me said, go there, they'll help. Before the Dawson family left, Emma insisted on saying goodbye to every single biker. She hugged Danny, who looked like he might break in half. She high-fived Bull, her tiny hand disappearing inside his massive palm. She told Jimmy his motorcycle was the coolest thing ever. She made Maggie promise to come visit, and when she got to Jack, she looked up at him and said, You're my guardian angel, even though you don't have wings. Maybe your motorcycle is your wings. Jack couldn't speak, he just nodded. Will you come visit me? Yeah, sweetheart, I will. Promise, promise. Promise, promise. They drove away. Emma waved from the back window of the pickup truck until it disappeared around the bend in the road, and the taillights were swallowed by the Montana dusk. Jack stood in the parking lot for a long time after they were gone. His brothers gave him space. They knew what this meant to him. They knew about Sophie. They'd seen what her death had done to him. 20 years of grief turned to stone. carried every day like a weight that would never get lighter. Tonight, for the first time, something had shifted inside that stone. He turned and walked back into the bar. "Church," he said. "Now." They gathered in the back room, 14 men around a heavy oak table, the door closed and locked. This was where the Hells Angels made their real decisions. "What we found today doesn't end with Nathan Briggs," Jack said. "Maggie, tell them." Maggie had her laptop open. "I've been going through everything I could pull from Briggs's phone before the FBI took it. 12 contact numbers, coded conversations going back 14 months, references to at least 6 locations across Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, and Colorado. They're using logistics terminology, packages, delivery windows, condition ratings, weight classes." "Weight classes?" Jimmy asked. "Age ranges. They categorize children by age, appearance, health status, like inventory." The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. "FBI's got the phone now," Danny said. "Agent Reeves seems solid." "She is solid," Jack agreed, "but she's handcuffed by procedure. Warrants, jurisdiction, chain of evidence. These networks work across state lines specifically because it creates bureaucratic tangles. By the time everyone coordinates, the targets move." He looked around the table. "Emma told me she saw other children, in different houses, different stops along the way. She said she never saw the same kids twice." Maggie nodded. "Which means they're being moved through a pipeline, handed from one person to the next, delivered to buyers." "What are we supposed to do?" asked Derek Snake Anderson, a long-haul trucker who knew every back road in the Northwest. "We're mechanics and truckers and construction workers. We're not cops." "No," Jack agreed. "We're not." He stood up. "But we know these roads. We know these towns. We know every truck stop and back highway and forgotten dirt road between here and the Canadian border. We see things cops don't see because people don't hide from us the same way. They're scared of us, sure, but they're not performing for us." He pulled out Agent Reeves's card and set it on the table. "She told me to call directly if we hear anything. What she really meant was, you can go places we can't. You can talk to people who won't talk to us. Help us." Bull leaned forward. "And if helping means crossing lines, then we cross them, case by case." Jack looked at every man at the table, his brothers, his family, his fellow monsters who fought other monsters. Today, a 5-year-old girl ran into this bar because she thought the scary bikers might be less dangerous than the man chasing her. She was right, and somewhere out there tonight, other kids are waiting for someone to care enough to find them. He let that settle. "I'm not ordering anyone. This isn't club business. This is personal. So I'm asking, who's in?" Every hand went up. Jack nodded slowly. "Then let's get to work." Maggie didn't sleep that night. Nobody told her to stay up. Nobody had to. While the rest of the club went home to restless beds and racing minds, she sat at the table in the back room of the Iron Forge with her laptop open and 3 burner phones lined up beside it, calling in every favor she'd ever earned during her 12 years in Army intelligence. By 6 in the morning, she had something. Jack's phone rang while he was staring at his kitchen ceiling. "Get to the clubhouse," Maggie said. "No greeting, no small talk. Now." He was there in 12 minutes. Danny, Bull, and Snake were already gathered around her, their faces drawn and gray from sleepless hours. Coffee cups littered the table. Maggie's eyes were bloodshot but burning. "Talk to me," Jack said. Maggie turned the laptop so everyone could see. "I ran every contact number from Briggs's phone through every database I could access. Military contacts, law enforcement friends, private search tools. Most of the numbers are burners, dead ends, but one number made a mistake." She pulled up a photograph. A woman, mid-30s, professional headshot, brown hair, warm smile, kind eyes, the sort of face you'd trust immediately, the sort of face you'd open your front door for. "Laura Whitmore," Maggie said, "runs a nonprofit called Bright Horizons Family Services. They provide support for struggling families, home visits, parenting classes, crisis intervention. She speaks at schools. She sits on county advisory boards. She's won 3 community service awards in the last 2 years. Sounds like a saint, Danny said. That's the point. Maggie's voice went flat. Bright Horizons received a $50,000 donation last year from a shell company called Prairie Wind Holdings. That same company pays rent on a remote property in Wyoming, and that property's coordinates match one of the 6 locations from Briggs's phone. Jack stared at the woman's photograph. Something cold moved through his gut. She's using the charity to find targets. Think about it, Maggie said. She gets invited into vulnerable homes, single mothers, families in financial trouble, people who can't fight back and won't be believed. She does her assessment. She sees the kids. She identifies which ones are isolated, which ones walk to school alone, which ones have parents working double shifts. And she passes that intelligence up the chain. Bull's fist hit the table so hard the coffee cups jumped. She's shopping for them. It gets worse. Maggie pulled up another screen. She's scheduled to speak at a community safety event next week. The topic is, and I wish I was making this up, protecting your children from predators. Nobody spoke. The irony was so dark it had weight. Jack picked up his keys. I'm going to see the Dawsons. Why? Danny asked. Because if Whitmore is scouting families, I need to know if she scouted Emma's. The Dawson house was small and tidy. A working-class home on a quiet street. When Jack pulled up on his motorcycle, the curtain moved. By the time he reached the porch, the door was already opening. Karen stood there. She looked better than she had in the parking lot. Showered, rested, holding herself together with the fragile determination of a woman refusing to fall apart in front of her child. Behind her, Jack could hear cartoons playing and Emma's voice singing along to something about a puppy. Mr. Mercer, I wasn't expecting... Please, call me Jack. Can I come in? She stepped aside. The living room was warm, family photos everywhere, the comfortable clutter of a home with a small child, crayons on the coffee table, a stuffed rabbit on the couch, tiny shoes kicked off by the front door. Emma was curled up on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, watching a cartoon. When she saw Jack, her whole face changed. Mr. Jack! She launched off the couch and ran to him, wrapping her arms around his legs in a hug so fierce it nearly knocked him sideways. You came! Mommy, Mr. Jack came! Something cracked in his chest. That same thing that had cracked when she first grabbed onto him, like a bone that had healed wrong, being broken again so it could set right. Hey there, Emma Bear, how you doing? Better. Mommy won't let me go anywhere, though. She even comes in the bathroom with me. Emma lowered her voice to a dramatic whisper. She thinks I don't notice, but I do. That's because your mommy loves you. I know, but it's a lot. Jack almost smiled. Almost. I need to talk to your mom for a few minutes. That okay? Okay, but you have to see my drawings before you leave. I drew you. You have a really big head in the picture. I appreciate the honesty. Karen led him to the kitchen. Mismatched mugs, a pot of coffee already made, like she'd been expecting someone even if she didn't know who. She poured for both of them without asking and sat down across the small table. Her hands wrapped around the mug like she needed the warmth, even though it was August. She has nightmares, Karen said before Jack could speak. Wakes up screaming about being in the car, about not being able to move, about the candy that made her sleepy. And during the day? During the day, she seems almost normal. Kids are tougher than we think. Karen's laugh was brittle. Tougher than me, anyway. How are you doing, Karen? I haven't slept more than 2 hours straight since we got her back. Every time I close my eyes, I see that parking lot. I see myself at the playground, looking at my phone, not watching. I keep thinking about all the ways I failed. Stop. You didn't fail her. I let her go to that park. 5 blocks. She'd walked it 100 times. I thought, you thought she was safe. Any parent would have. Karen stared into her coffee. What did you come here to ask me, Jack? He leaned forward. I need you to think carefully. In the weeks before Emma was taken, did anyone unusual contact your family? Someone offering services, asking questions, maybe from a charity or a government program? Karen's mug stopped halfway to her lips. Why? Because the man who took Emma wasn't working alone. We think there's a network, and we think they might be using legitimate-looking organizations to find their targets. The color drained from Karen's face. Her hands started to shake. Coffee sloshed over the rim of the mug. Oh, God. Karen, talk to me. About 6 weeks ago, a woman came to our door. She said she was from a family support organization. She'd heard that Ben's hours got cut at the site. She wanted to assess whether we qualified for assistance. Jack's heart rate spiked. He kept his voice steady. What did she look like? Professional, put together, brown hair, really warm smile. She asked a lot of questions about our situation, about our finances, about Emma, her school, her schedule, her friends, about whether we had family nearby. I thought she was being thorough. Did she come inside? Yes, she wanted to see Emma's room, said it was standard procedure. Karen's voice was rising. Her eyes were going wide. She sat on Emma's bed. She looked at Emma's drawings on the wall. She asked what time Emma went to school and what time she came home and whether she ever walked anywhere alone. Did she leave a card? Karen stood abruptly. She crossed to a drawer near the phone, hands shaking, and rummaged through takeout menus and old receipts. She pulled out a business card and held it out. Jack took it. Laura Whitmore, Family Outreach Coordinator, Bright Horizons Family Services. His blood went ice cold. This woman, he said carefully, she sat in your home. She asked about your daughter's routine. She assessed exactly how vulnerable your family was. Karen's knees buckled. She grabbed the counter. Oh God, oh God, oh God. I let her in. I showed her everything. I told her we didn't have family close by. I told her Ben was working doubles. I told her Emma walked to the park by herself sometimes. I told her, Karen, look at me. Her eyes were wild. The realization was hitting her like a physical blow. Every motherly instinct she had was screaming at her that she'd opened the door and led the wolf straight to her child. This is not your fault. These people are professionals. They know exactly how to seem trustworthy. They know how to manipulate good people into sharing information. You were trying to help your family. That's nothing to be ashamed of. But if I hadn't, then they would have found another way. That's what they do. That's all they do. Karen collapsed into her chair. Tears ran down her face. Jack gave her a moment, then spoke again. I need you to tell me everything you remember about that conversation. Every question she asked, every detail. Karen wiped her eyes, steadied her breathing. Okay, yes, I can do that. For the next hour, Jack listened. Karen reconstructed the entire visit. Whitmore had been meticulous. She'd asked about Emma's school schedule, her after-school activities, her bedtime routine. She'd asked about neighbors, how close they were, how often they checked in. She'd asked about extended family and whether anyone visited regularly. Every question was designed to map exactly how isolated and vulnerable Emma was. When Jack finally left, he had 3 pages of notes and a certainty in his gut that felt like swallowed glass. Emma had not been a random victim. She'd been selected, evaluated, marked. He called Maggie from the parking lot. Confirmed, Whitmore visited the Dawson home 6 weeks before the abduction. Full assessment. She had everything. Schedule, vulnerabilities, how often Emma was unsupervised. All of it. Jack, Maggie's voice was tight. I've been cross-referencing. Families Whitmore visited over the past 4 years matched against missing children reports. How many? A long, horrible pause. 19. Jack's hand tightened on the phone until the case creaked. 19 children, Maggie continued, from families that Whitmore personally assessed. All reported missing within 6 months of her visit. And here's the thing that keeps me up. Most of these cases were barely investigated, classified as runaways, custody disputes. One was listed as a voluntary departure. She was 7 years old, Jack. 7-year-olds don't voluntarily depart. Someone made sure those cases got buried. Someone with influence over local law enforcement. Someone who could make a missing child report disappear into a filing cabinet. Jack stared at the Dawson house. Through the window, he could see Emma showing Karen a drawing. The little girl was laughing at something, living her life, not knowing how close she'd come to becoming number 20. Find out who's protecting this network, Jack said. I don't care how deep you have to dig. He hung up and rode straight to Murphy's Diner, a grease-stained pit stop on the edge of town where Bull was waiting in a back booth with a nervous-looking man in his 50s. Jack, this is Dave Hendricks, maintenance at the county building. Tell him what you told me, Dave. Dave looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. I don't want trouble. I got a pension coming in 3 years. No trouble, Jack said, sliding in. Just conversation. Dave took a shaky breath. About 8 months ago, I was doing after-hours cleaning at the county records office. I walked into the file room and found someone who wasn't supposed to be there. That Whitmore woman, the one who runs the charity. What was she doing? She had a stack of files on the desk. Child services records, custody cases, foster placements, confidential stuff. And she was photographing pages with her phone, one by one. Meticulous. She had access to those files? Hell no, those records are sealed, but she had a key. And when she saw me, she didn't panic. She didn't make excuses. She just looked at me and said, I'm conducting authorized research for a county contract. You should forget you saw me. Real calm, real confident, like she knew nothing would happen even if I talked. Did you report it? Dave looked away. I mentioned it to my supervisor. He told me Bright Horizons was a valued county partner and I should mind my own business. Who's your supervisor? County administrator, guy named Howard Caldwell. The name dropped into the conversation like a stone into still water. Bull leaned forward. Caldwell, the businessman, sits on the hospital board, the school board, the county planning commission, donates to every police fundraiser in the state, plays golf with the sheriff every Thursday. And according to Maggie, Jack said slowly, Prairie Wind Holdings, the shell company funding Whitmore's charity and paying rent on that Wyoming property, lists Caldwell as a silent partner. Dave's eyes went wide. He looked between them, frightened. What are you saying? That Caldwell is involved in something? We're not saying anything, Dave, but I appreciate you talking to us. Jack held his gaze. You might want to take some vacation time, starting soon. Dave left so fast he nearly knocked over his coffee. Bull waited until the door closed. Caldwell is connected to half the power structure in this county. If he's dirty, this thing reaches higher than we thought. Whitmore scouts the targets, Jack said, fitting pieces together. Briggs grabs the kids. Caldwell provides the cover and the money. But there have to be more. Buyers, transporters, people handling the cash. How do we take down something this big? One piece at a time, starting with Whitmore. His phone buzzed. Maggie. You need to get back here, she said. I found something else. The 19 missing children. I dug into each case. Most of them, the initial police reports were thorough. Detectives actually investigated. But then somewhere in the process, the cases got reclassified, downgraded, shelved. And in every single case, the order to reclassify came from the same office. Caldwell's. Not directly. He's too smart for that. The orders came through the county attorney's office. But the county attorney is Caldwell's brother-in-law. Jack closed his eyes. The network wasn't just organized, it was institutional, woven into the fabric of the community, protected by the very systems that were supposed to protect children. There's more, Maggie said. I intercepted chatter on one of the burner numbers. They know about Briggs. They know he's in custody, and they're moving fast. There's talk about cleaning house and relocating inventory. Inventory, Jesus. Jack, if they're spooked enough to shut down operations, the children they're currently holding become loose ends. The word loose ends hit him like a fist to the chest. How long do we have? Days, maybe less. Call Agent Reeves. Give her everything we've got. Everything. And if she can't move fast enough? Jack didn't answer. He didn't have to. Maggie knew. They all knew. There was a limit to how long you could wait for the system while children were dying. 2 days later, Briggs was transferred to a federal facility. Standard procedure, his lawyer said. Safety concerns at the county lockup. During transport, the vehicle went off the road. A single-car accident on a straight stretch of highway with perfect visibility and dry pavement. Briggs suffered massive head trauma. The doctor said he might never wake up. Jack got the call from Maggie at 11 at night. The transport was handled by a private security company, she said. Want to guess who holds the contract? Prairie Wind Holdings. Give the man a prize. They killed their own guy. Put him in a coma so he can't talk. Same result, less paperwork. And Jack, Reeves, is furious. She suspects internal compromise. Someone in the FBI's regional office may have flagged the transport. She's going over her supervisor's head. Her supervisor? Assistant Director Reynolds. 20-year bureau veteran. But Reeves has been noticing things. Reports that get delayed. Warrants that get lost. Leads that go nowhere. She thinks Reynolds might be on someone's payroll. The corruption went deeper than Jack had imagined. Local law enforcement, county administration, possibly the FBI itself. A machine built over years, maybe decades, designed to steal children and make anyone who asked questions look crazy or criminal. Then the threat started. The first text came at 3 a.m. Unknown number, no message, just a photograph of the Iron Forge taken from across the street. The second came at noon, a photograph of Jack's house. One word, flammable. The third came at 6. We know where your brothers live. We know where the Dawson family lives. Step back or we start burning things down, starting with the girl. Jack showed the messages at the emergency church meeting. Every member was present. They're trying to scare us off, Bull said. My wife saw the texts, Jimmy said. His voice was strained. She's terrified. She wants me out. Nobody's judging anyone who needs to step back, Jack said. This isn't what you signed up for. This is exactly what I signed up for. Danny's voice cut through the room. These people traffic children, Jimmy. They put kids in handcuffs and sell them. You think backing down makes your family safe? You think people like this stop at threats? Tommy's right, Snake said. We're already in this. Only way out is through. Jack looked around the table. Every man stayed. Then we go harder. Maggie, the Wyoming property. What do we have? Maggie pulled up satellite images. Remote, 45 miles from the nearest town. Property records show it's owned by Prairie Wind Holdings. Recent construction includes a reinforced main building and what looks like underground additions. Underground, Bull repeated. Nobody wanted to say what underground meant. Nobody had to. I've been monitoring Whitmore's phone since we identified her, Maggie continued. After Briggs's accident, she made 6 calls in 1 hour. 3 to lawyers, 1 to an unknown number, and 2 to this property's landline. Short calls, 30 seconds each, like she was leaving coded messages. She's warning them, Danny said. She's panicking, and panicking people make mistakes. Jack stood. We need eyes on that property. Danny, how close can you get? Give me 48 hours. I'll map every guard, every patrol, every entry point. Take Snake as backup. Observation only. You do not engage. You do not approach. If you see children, you call me and you call Reeves. We don't sit on that. Understood. And Danny, Jack's voice dropped, be careful. These people already put one man in a coma to keep him quiet. They won't hesitate with you. Danny almost smiled. They can try. They left within the hour. 2 men in a beat-up pickup truck heading into the Montana wilderness toward a property where the worst things imaginable were happening to children who had nobody to save them. While they drove into the darkness, Jack sat alone in the empty bar, staring at the spot on the floor where Emma had crashed into his legs 4 days ago. 4 days. It felt like a lifetime. His phone buzzed. A text from Karen Dawson. Emma drew another picture of you today. In this one, you have wings. She says guardian angels don't need real wings because their motorcycles fly for them. I hope you're being careful. Karen. Jack stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed back, "Tell Emma Bear I'm keeping my promise. Promise, promise." He pocketed the phone and locked up the bar. Somewhere in Wyoming, Danny and Snake were driving toward a building full of armed guards and stolen children. Somewhere in this county, a woman named Laura Whitmore was preparing to speak at a community event about protecting kids from predators. Somewhere in an expensive house, Howard Caldwell was pulling strings, making calls, protecting an empire built on the small bodies of children. And in the Iron Forge, 14 Hell's Angels were preparing for a war that nobody outside these walls knew had started. Jack walked to his motorcycle. The Montana night was vast and cold and full of stars. He kicked the engine to life and sat for a moment, feeling the vibration run through his body like a heartbeat. 20 years ago, he'd held Sophie's hand in a hospital room while the monitors went flat. 20 years of grief and guilt and rage that he'd channeled into the club, into the road, into a life that felt more like penance than purpose. And now a 5-year-old girl had called him her guardian angel. And somewhere in the darkness, other children were waiting. His phone rang, Danny's number. "We're in position," Danny whispered. "Jack, there's armed guards, dogs, cameras. This place is a fortress. Any sign of children?" A long pause. Then Danny's voice, different now, tight, controlled. The way a man sounds when he's trying not to break. "East side, barred window. I can see movement. Small figures. Jack, they're kids. At least 6, maybe more." Jack gripped the handlebars until his knuckles went white. "Get out of there, both of you. Do not engage. Come home." "But that is not a request, Danny. We need a plan. We need numbers. We go in half-cocked, those kids die, and so do we. Come home. We regroup. And then we go get them." He ended the call. 6 children, maybe more, locked behind barred windows in a building in the middle of nowhere, guarded by men with guns and dogs, waiting to be sold to the highest bidder. And Jack Mercer, president of the Hells Angels Montana chapter, former Marine, father of a dead girl, was the only person on earth who knew they were there and was willing to do something about it. He rode into the night. Danny and Snake made it back to the Iron Forge by 4 in the morning. Danny's hands were still shaking when he spread the hand-drawn map across the table. Guard positions, patrol routes, camera angles, entry points, the layout of a building designed to hold children like cattle. 6 confirmed, Danny said. Could be more in the underground sections. 2-man patrols every 20 minutes. 3 dogs. At least 8 guards total, rotating shifts. They're armed, Jack. Rifles, sidearms. These aren't weekend security guys. These are professionals. Jack stared at the map. 6 children behind barred windows. Maybe more underground. 45 miles from the nearest town. Armed guards with military-grade weapons. Dogs trained to alert. "We can't take this alone," Bull said quietly. "No," Jack agreed. "We can't." He picked up his phone and dialed Agent Reeves. She answered on the second ring. "It's 4 in the morning, Mercer. We found the children." Silence on the line. Then Reeves's voice, sharp and awake. "Where?" "Wyoming. Prairie Wind Holdings property. Armed compound. At least 6 kids confirmed visual. Maybe more underground. Heavy security." "How do you know this?" "Does it matter?" Another pause. "No, I suppose it doesn't. Give me the coordinates." Jack read them off. "How fast can you move?" "I need warrants. I need a tactical team. I need coordination with Wyoming field office." "How fast, Reeves?" "Days, maybe a week. Caldwell has connections in the state attorney's office. Every warrant I file gets flagged, delayed, buried. I've been fighting this for months. Those kids don't have a week." "I know that." Her voice cracked. Just slightly, just enough for Jack to hear the human being underneath the badge. You think I don't know that? I've been chasing these people for 2 years. I have a wall in my office covered with photographs of missing children. I look at their faces every morning. But if I move without legal authority, the case collapses. Evidence gets thrown out. These monsters walk. And if you wait? Reeves didn't answer. She didn't need to. Listen to me, Jack said. You stay clean. You do everything by the book. Get your warrants. Build your case. Follow your process. What are you going to do? What I have to. Jack, if you go in there without authority, I can't protect you. If something goes wrong, something's already wrong. There are children in cages. That's wrong. Everything else is details. He hung up. But they weren't ready yet. Not for the compound. Not with 8 armed guards and military-grade security. They needed more men, more planning, more intelligence. And they had another target first. The community event. Laura Whitmore was scheduled to speak at the Riverside Community Center in 2 days. The woman who scouted children for a trafficking network was going to stand on a stage and teach parents how to protect their kids from predators. Jack wasn't going to let that happen. We don't confront her directly, he told the club. That gives her a chance to spin the story. We plant seeds. We ask questions. We let the truth do the work. Maggie had spent 72 hours building a dossier, financial records tying Bright Horizons to Prairie Wind Holdings. The list of 19 missing children whose families Whitmore had assessed. Dave Hendricks's account of finding her photographing sealed records. Phone records linking her to Briggs's network. Everything organized, documented, undeniable. They went in civilian clothes, no leather vests, no patches, nothing to identify them as Hell's Angels. Just concerned citizens attending a community event about child safety. The room was packed. 50, 60 parents, maybe more. Whitmore stood at the front, polished and confident, clicking through a slideshow. Her voice was warm and earnest. She talked about warning signs, safe internet practices, the importance of knowing your children's friends. The most dangerous predators, she said, leaning forward with practiced sincerity, are the ones who seem most trustworthy. They infiltrate communities. They build relationships. They gain access to the most vulnerable families. Jack sat in the back row. His fingernails dug into his palms. During the Q&A, Maggie raised her hand, calm, professional, just a concerned community member. Ms. Whitmore, you mentioned that Bright Horizons does home assessments for struggling families. Can you tell us more about what that involves? Whitmore smiled. Of course. We visit families who might need support. We evaluate their situation, housing stability, childcare arrangements, support networks, and connect them with appropriate resources. And you keep detailed records of these assessments? Naturally, everything is documented for quality assurance. How do you ensure that information stays confidential? Detailed data about a family's vulnerabilities, that could be extremely valuable to the wrong people. Whitmore's smile flickered. All our records are strictly confidential. Only authorized staff have access. But you also access county records as part of your work. Child services files, foster placement records. The smile was gone now. Where exactly are you going with this? I'm just wondering about your data security protocols. Because information about vulnerable children, their routines, their isolation, how often they're left unsupervised, if that information were passed to the wrong people, the consequences would be catastrophic, wouldn't they? Murmurs rippled through the audience. Parents shifted in their seats. They were looking at Whitmore differently now. I can assure you, Whitmore said, her voice cooling, that Bright Horizons maintains the highest ethical standards. Snake raised his hand from the middle of the room. I've got a question. A buddy of mine, his family got a home visit from your organization about 2 years ago. Real nice woman came to their house, asked a lot of questions about their kids, their schedules, whether they had family nearby. 6 months later, their 8-year-old daughter went missing. The murmurs got louder. I'm very sorry to hear that, Whitmore said carefully, but I fail to see. What's strange is that the police barely looked into it, classified it as a runaway. An 8-year-old girl. A runaway. Does that sound right to you? I really can't comment on individual. How about 19 cases? Danny stood up now, holding a folder. We've been doing some research. 19 children from families your organization assessed have gone missing in the last 4 years. All within 6 months of your home visits. All barely investigated. All classified as runaways or custody disputes. The room erupted. Parents were on their feet, voices overlapping, shock turning to anger. Whitmore grabbed her purse. This is outrageous. You're making baseless accusations. This is slander, and I'm calling my attorney. Call whoever you want. Jack spoke for the first time. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. But the FBI already has copies of everything. Financial records tying your charity to shell companies linked to trafficking operations. Phone records connecting you to a man arrested last week for kidnapping a 5-year-old girl. Agent Diana Reeves. I'm sure you know the name. Whitmore's face went white. Dead white. The blood just left. She's very interested in talking to you, Jack continued. For 1 second, Whitmore's mask dropped completely. What was underneath wasn't frightened. It was furious. Cold, calculating, cornered animal fury. Then she turned and walked fast toward the exit. Let her go, Jack said quietly. She'll panic. She'll make calls. Every call gives us more information. Bull was waiting outside. He watched Whitmore practically sprint to her car, phone already pressed to her ear. She's rattled, Bull reported by text, making calls, lots of them. Inside the community center, parents were demanding answers. Some were already on their phones with local officials. Others were pulling up news articles about Briggs's arrest, connecting dots that had been hidden in plain sight. The seed had been planted. It was already growing. But Jack knew they just kicked a hornet's nest, and hornets sting back. His phone buzzed that night. Unknown number. The message was short. You've made powerful enemies, people who can reach anyone, anywhere. Step back now and you'll be rewarded. Continue and everyone you love will suffer, starting with the Dawson girl. Jack stared at the message. His thumb hovered over the keyboard. Then he typed 2 words and hit send. Come try. 48 hours later, Maggie cracked Whitmore's phone activity wide open. The 6 panic calls from the community center led to 3 lawyers, 1 untraceable burner, and 2 calls to the Wyoming compound. She warned them, Danny said. They'll be on high alert now. Or they'll run, Maggie countered. And running means moving fast, which means making mistakes. She was right. 2 days after the community event, Jack got a call from Agent Reeves. Her voice was strange, tight and compressed, like she was holding back something enormous. I need to meet, not the phone, face to face, the old mill, 1 hour. Jack rode out alone. Reeves was leaning against her government sedan, arms crossed, looking like she hadn't slept in days. The Wyoming compound, she said the moment he was within earshot. We've had it under satellite surveillance since you gave me the coordinates. And? Activity dropped to 0 12 hours after the community event. Guards pulled out, dogs gone, vehicles evacuated. Jack's stomach fell through the floor. The children. We don't know. They could have been moved. They could. She stopped herself. We just don't know. Then we go in. Right now. Tonight. If there's even a chance those kids are still there. That's not all. Reeves uncrossed her arms. Her hands were shaking. I filed my report about your extracurricular activities. Standard procedure. I had to document it. Who saw the report? My supervisor, Assistant Director Reynolds. The one you suspected was compromised. I didn't suspect hard enough. Jack, my report went through standard channels, multiple offices, state coordination. If anyone in those offices is connected to Caldwell's network, they tip them off. I got these people warned. I did this. I followed protocol and it... Her voice broke. She turned away. You did your job, Jack said. The system failed, not you. Those children are still alive until someone proves otherwise, and I don't give up on kids that easy. They hit the Wyoming compound that night. Jack, Danny, Bull, Snake, and Reeves with two agents she trusted absolutely. Agents she'd personally vetted by going around Reynolds entirely. The compound was a ghost. Evacuated, stripped, but not clean enough. Danny found it first. The underground level, small mattresses stained with things that made hardened combat veterans turn away. Restraints bolted to concrete walls. A medical area with sedatives and examination equipment sized for children. Bull walked into the room and walked right back out. He made it 10 feet before he threw up. Snake found a burn barrel outside, still warm, charred remains of files and photographs. He pulled fragments from the ashes with his bare hands, burning his fingers, not caring. Most of it's gone, he reported, but not all. And then Danny's voice echoed from the main building. Quiet, controlled, the most dangerous tone Jack had ever heard him use. Jack, wall panel in the office, they missed something. It was a laptop, wedged behind a false panel that had been hastily replaced. In their rush to evacuate, someone had forgotten it, or hadn't known it was there. Maggie grabbed it like a lifeline. If I can break the encryption, do it, Jack said. Right now, right here. Reeves was on the phone with her director, not Reynolds, the actual director, reporting the compound, requesting forensics, blowing past every chain of command that had failed her. When she hung up, her career was probably over. She didn't seem to care. Jack stood in that basement. He stood among the mattresses and the restraints and the medical equipment, and he breathed. In and out. In and out. Because if he stopped breathing, if he let himself feel what this room meant, he would come apart at the seams and never get put back together. His phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Mercer. The voice was smooth, cultured, utterly calm. My name is Howard Caldwell. I believe we need to talk. Where are the children? Safe, for the moment, which is more than I can say for you and your associates. This is the part where you threaten me? I don't threaten, Mr. Mercer. I inform. The network you've stumbled into has operated for over a decade. It has protection at every level, local, state, federal. The FBI agent you've been working with? Her supervisor has been on our payroll for 4 years. Reynolds. Smart man. So you understand the scope of what you're dealing with. I understand you sell children. I run a business, supply and demand. You found one facility, we have others. You exposed one scout, we'll have another within weeks. You're fighting the ocean, Mercer. You can't drain it with a bucket. What do you want? To offer you an exit. Walk away, disband your investigation, go back to your motorcycles and your bar. In return, I'll consider the matter closed. And the kids? Not your concern. Jack was quiet for a long moment. He looked at the tiny mattresses on the floor, the restraints with the small cuffs, the marks on the walls where fingernails had scratched the concrete. Let me make you a counteroffer, he said. Release every child in your network within 48 hours, every single one, or I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never see sunlight again. Not a threat, a fact. Caldwell laughed, genuinely amused. You're in no position. 48 hours, Caldwell, starting now. He hung up, crushed the phone under his boot, turned to find Maggie staring at her laptop with tears running down her face. I cracked it, she said. Jack, it's everything. Transfer records, buyer identities, payment routes, financial records going back 3 years. Is there a current location? Yes, Maggie's voice was shaking. Updated this morning. A private airfield outside Helena. Flight manifest scheduled for tomorrow night. 11 p.m. departure. She looked up. Cargo manifest lists 11 packages. Under age 10. 11 children. Jack's vision went white for a second. His hands balled into fists so tight that his knuckles popped. Tomorrow night, he said. Tomorrow night. He turned to Danny, to Bull, to Snake, To Reeves, to every person standing in that basement of horrors. We know where they are. We know when they're moving. Tomorrow night, we end this. Nobody spoke. Nobody needed to. The next 24 hours were the longest of Jack's life. They planned at a safe house Maggie secured, a foreclosed property outside Helena. Maps covered every surface. Photographs of the airfield from drive-by reconnaissance. Tactical diagrams drawn from Danny's military training. 2 guards at the main gate, Danny reported. 3 more roving, minimal compared to Wyoming. They're not expecting trouble. Because they think they've won, Maggie said. Caldwell made his call, delivered his ultimatum. As far as he knows, we're backing off. Good, Jack said. Let him think that. The plan came together in hours. 3 teams. Alpha takes the main building. Jack, Danny, Bull, and Maggie. Bravo secures the perimeter. Snake, Jimmy, and 4 brothers from a neighboring chapter who'd heard what was happening and driven through the night to help. Reeves and her 2 trusted agents hold the outer ring, ready to move in once the facility was secured. Rules of engagement, Jack said, and the room went quiet. Non-lethal unless absolutely necessary. These guards are hired muscle. Most of them probably don't know what they're protecting. We put them down, we secure them, we leave them for the feds. And if they shoot first, Bull asked, then we respond. But nobody fires anywhere near those children. Anyone who can't control their weapon stays outside. What about Caldwell? Danny asked. Will he be there? Maggie checked her laptop. Intercepted a communication 2 hours ago. He's overseeing the transfer personally. Too much money on the line to trust subordinates. That's either confidence or arrogance, Reeves said. It's the same thing, Jack replied, and it's going to get him caught. The afternoon before the raid, Jack rode out to the Dawson house one last time. He didn't know why exactly. He just needed to see Emma. Needed to remember why he was about to risk everything. She was in the backyard with a new puppy, a clumsy golden retriever she'd named Biscuit. When she saw Jack at the fence, she dropped the ball she was throwing and ran over. Mr. Jack, look, Biscuit can almost catch. He's really bad at it, but Daddy says he'll get better. Jack crouched down to the fence. That's a fine dog, Emma Bear. Are you okay? You look tired. 5 years old, and she could read his face better than most adults. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just have a busy night ahead. Emma's expression shifted. That too old look. That knowing look. Are you going to help the other kids? The ones the bad people took? Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. She reached through the fence and grabbed his hand with both of hers. You'll save them. I know you will, because that's what you do. He squeezed her small fingers and couldn't speak for a moment. Karen appeared on the porch. She'd seen the news about Whitmore. She'd put the pieces together. She knew, without being told, what was coming. Be careful, she called softly, and come back. Take care of your mom and dad, Emma Bear. I will. Promise, promise. Promise, promise. He left before his resolve could crack. At 2,100, they hit the warehouse. 3 teams moving through darkness. Danny took the external guards first. Quick, silent, precise. Zip ties and duct tape. 4 men neutralized in under 90 seconds. Alpha team breached the side door. The corridor inside was lit by flickering fluorescence. Voices from deeper in the building. Someone laughing. Music playing from a radio. First interior guard came around a corner and walked directly into Bull's fist. He was unconscious before his body finished falling. Danny caught the second with a chokehold. 15 seconds of pressure and the man went limp. 2 down, 2 to go. Jack pressed against the wall and looked around the corner into the central warehouse space. His heart stopped. 11 children, ages 4 to 9, on the concrete floor, hands zip-tied in front of them, mouths gagged with cloth strips. Some were crying silently, tears cutting through dirty faces. Others had stopped crying altogether. Their eyes were empty, hollow, already broken by things no child should ever endure. 2 guards stood over them, rifles across their chests. professional, alert. And above them, in a glass-walled office overlooking the warehouse floor, sat Howard Caldwell. Gray hair, expensive suit, crystal glass in his hand. He was checking his watch, looking bored, waiting for a shipment to be loaded the way a CEO waits for a quarterly report. Jack's blood turned to battery acid. Maggie touched his arm. Her eyes were fixed on the children. How do we do this without putting them in the crossfire? We need those guards away from the kids. Then Caldwell solved it for them. His voice came through an intercom, tinny and impatient. Load them up. Trucks arrive in 10 minutes. I want this done before midnight. One guard moved toward the loading door at the far end. The other began pulling children to their feet by their arms. Rough, careless, the way you handle objects, not people. The moment the guards separated, Jack acted. Bull, loading door. Danny, office. Maggie, get to the children. Go. Bull covered the distance like a freight train. The guard at the loading door heard him coming, started to turn, and then 280 pounds of fury drove him into the steel wall. The rifle clattered away. Bull hit him twice more. The man stopped moving. Jack went straight for the second guard. The man was still holding a child by the arm. A boy, maybe 5, tears streaming down his face. The guard saw Jack coming and reached for his weapon. Jack hit him before the hand got there. A driving tackle that ripped the guard away from the boy and slammed both men to the concrete. 3 strikes, fast, precise. The guard's eyes rolled back. Maggie was already among the children, pulling gags loose, cutting zip ties. Her voice was soft and steady, even though tears were pouring down her face. It's okay, you're safe. We're here to help. Nobody's going to hurt you anymore. The children clung to her, small hands grabbing at her jacket, her arms, her shirt. Some started crying louder, the dam breaking now that safety was possible. Others just stared, unable to process that rescue was real. From the office above, a gunshot. Jack's blood froze. Danny! He was up the stairs in seconds, crashing through the office door. Danny stood over Caldwell, weapon trained on the man's chest. Caldwell was on the floor, clutching his right shoulder, blood seeping through his fingers. A small pistol lay 6 feet away. He pulled on me, Danny said. His voice was steady, his hands were not. Had one in his desk drawer. Jack crouched over Howard Caldwell. Up close, the man looked ordinary, smaller than his reputation. The kind of face you'd forget 5 minutes after meeting. You shot me, Caldwell gasped. Do you have any idea what you've... Shut up. I have connections at every level. State police, FBI, the Attorney General's office. You'll be in prison before... Your network is blown. Jack's voice was barely above a whisper. Your assets are frozen. Your contacts are being rounded up right now. Agent Reeves went over Reynolds' head, straight to the director. They've been executing warrants in 4 states since this morning. Reynolds was arrested at his desk 3 hours ago. Caldwell's face went gray. That's impossible. We had people in place. You had a network built on money and fear. Money runs out, fear fades, and the second things got hot, your people started cutting deals to save themselves. Turns out criminals aren't real loyal when they're facing life sentences. Reeves's voice crackled through Jack's earpiece. Perimeter secure. Local police inbound. Medical teams en route. Status on the children? Jack looked through the office window at the warehouse floor below. Maggie was surrounded by 11 small figures, all of them holding on to her, all of them alive. All 11 recovered, Jack said. All alive. Thank God. Jack stood and looked down at Caldwell one last time. The man who had built an empire on stolen children. The man who had sat in a glass office sipping expensive liquor while kids cried on a concrete floor below him. My daughter would be 32 this year, Jack said. She was taken by people like you, sold by people like you. I found her in a shallow grave when she was 12 years old. I spent 20 years waiting to look someone like you in the eye. Caldwell's mouth twisted. And what? You feel better now? You feel like a hero? No, I feel like a father who couldn't save his own kid. And that's exactly why I just saved 11 of someone else's. He turned and walked out of the office and didn't look back. Downstairs, the chaos was just beginning. Ambulances, FBI evidence teams, child trauma specialists, local police who'd been kept in the dark until the last possible second. The 11 children were examined, wrapped in blankets, given water and food and soft words by people trained to coax shattered children back toward trust. Jack stood apart from it all, watching. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. 20 years of grief and rage focused into this single night, this single act, and now that it was done, he didn't know what to do with what was left. Danny appeared beside him, equally shell-shocked. "You okay?" Danny asked. "I keep thinking about Sophie, wondering if anyone ever came for her, if she waited for a rescue that never showed up." "You can't save them all, Jack." "No, but tonight we saved 11. That counts for something. It counts for everything." His phone buzzed. He almost didn't answer, but the number was Karen Dawson's. "Is it done?" she asked. Her voice was shaking. "It's done, all 11. They're going home." Karen started crying. Not the broken crying from the parking lot, something different, something cleaner, the kind of tears that wash things away instead of drowning you. "Thank you," she managed. "Thank you. Tell Emma Bear I kept my promise." "I will. I'll tell her first thing in the morning." "Karen." "Yes?" "It's over. The man who took Emma, the people he worked for, the woman who came to your house, all of it. Your daughter is safe, really safe this time." More crying, but good crying, the kind that lets you breathe again. Jack ended the call and sat on the bumper of an ambulance, watching federal agents lead Howard Caldwell out of the building in handcuffs. The expensive suit was stained with blood. The polished confidence was gone. What was left was small and pale and ordinary. Just a man. Just a pathetic, ordinary man who had hurt children because he could. One of the rescued kids, a little girl couldn't have been more than 5, broke away from the paramedic and ran to Jack. She grabbed his hand and held on. She didn't say anything. She just held his hand and stood beside him and watched the ambulances with wide, exhausted eyes. Jack looked down at her. He didn't know her name, didn't know where she was from, or how long she'd been held, or what had been done to her. But she was alive, and she was holding his hand. And for the first time in 20 years, Jack Mercer felt something other than grief. The little girl wouldn't let go of his hand, not when the paramedics came, not when the child specialist crouched beside her with a warm blanket, not when Agent Reeves tried to gently guide her toward the ambulance. She just tightened her grip on Jack's fingers and shook her head. "It's okay, sweetheart," the specialist said softly. "We need to make sure you're healthy." The girl looked up at Jack. Her eyes were enormous, brown, wet, terrified. "Are you coming with me?" "I'll be right here. I'm not going anywhere." She studied his face the way Emma had studied it, that careful, desperate assessment that children make when they're trying to decide if an adult is telling the truth. Then she nodded and let the specialist take her other hand. But she kept looking back at Jack every few steps, making sure he was still there. "Her name is Olivia," Reeves said, appearing at his shoulder. "Olivia Marsh, 6 years old, missing from Bozeman for 11 weeks. Her mother has been on the news every single night begging for information." 11 weeks. Jack did the math. 77 days. 77 nights that little girl had spent in captivity while her mother sat in front of cameras and pleaded with a world that wasn't listening. "How fast can you get the parents here?" "We're already making calls. Most of the families are within driving distance. Some will be here by morning." "And Caldwell?" Reeves's jaw tightened. "Being transported to a federal facility, not through regular channels. I'm handling the security personally. Nobody touches him. Nobody talks to him. Nobody gets within 100 feet of him without my authorization." "After what happened to Briggs?" "I know. That's why I'm not trusting anyone I haven't personally vetted. Reynolds is in custody. 3 other agents from the regional office are being investigated. The director is treating this as a full internal compromise. Jack watched as more ambulances arrived. 11 small figures being carried, guided, lifted into vehicles by gentle hands. Some of the children were crying. Some were silent. One boy, maybe 7, was laughing. A high, uncontrollable laugh that the trauma specialist recognized immediately as shock. Reeves. Yeah? Caldwell said something on the phone. He said they'd been operating for over a decade. He said they had protection at every level. I know. How deep does this go? Reeves was quiet for a moment. Deep enough that I'm scared, Jack, and I don't scare easy. The family started arriving before dawn. The first was Olivia's mother, Rachel Marsh. She came in a car driven by a uniformed officer, still wearing pajamas, her hair uncombed, her feet in slippers. She'd been pulled from sleep by a phone call she'd been praying for and dreading in equal measure for 77 days. When she saw Olivia, sitting on the bumper of an ambulance wrapped in a silver shock blanket, drinking from a juice box, Rachel's legs gave out. She dropped to the pavement 10 feet from her daughter and crawled the rest of the way on her hands and knees, making sounds that weren't words. "Mommy," Olivia whispered, and then louder, "Mommy!" She launched off the bumper and hit her mother at full speed. Rachel caught her and held on, and the two of them rocked back and forth on the ground, crying so hard they couldn't breathe, holding each other like they were afraid the world would try to separate them again. Jack turned away. He couldn't watch anymore. It was too close, too raw. 20 years ago, nobody had come to a parking lot to scoop Sophie up. Nobody had rocked her and told her it was over. She died alone in a place nobody found for 3 days. "Hey," Danny grabbed his arm. "Stay with me, Jack. Stay here." "I'm here. Look at me. You saved those kids. You did that. Sophie would be—" "Don't." Jack's voice cracked. "Not now. I can't do that now." Okay. More families came as the sun rose. Each reunion was its own earthquake. A father from Great Falls who fell to his knees and pressed his forehead to his son's chest, listening to the heartbeat he thought he'd never hear again. Twin sisters from Missoula, 8 years old, who'd been taken together and had held hands through every moment of their captivity. Their parents arrived in separate cars because they divorced 3 weeks after the abduction, destroyed by grief and blame, and now they stood together, watching their girls, and couldn't stop touching each other's arms, like they'd forgotten they weren't enemies anymore. A grandmother from Billings who pushed through the police line with a strength that belied her 70 years, searching the crowd with wild eyes until she found her grandson, a small boy named Tyler who had been missing for 4 months and had stopped speaking entirely. When he saw her, the first word he said in 16 weeks was, "Nana," and the old woman made a sound that every person in that parking lot would remember for the rest of their lives. Jack watched each reunion from a distance. Each one was a knife. Each one was a gift. Each one was proof that what they'd done mattered. His phone buzzed. Karen Dawson. "I saw the news," she said. Her voice was thick with tears. "Jack, 11 children. You saved 11 children." "We saved them. Emma saved them. None of this happens if she doesn't run through that door." I told her this morning. She cried, happy crying. Then she made me a promise. "What promise?" She said when she grows up, she's going to help save kids too. She said she's going to be like Mr. Jack, but with a badge instead of a motorcycle. Jack leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. "That's the best thing I've heard all week. Will you come see her? She's been drawing pictures nonstop. She wants to show you." "Soon, I promise." Promise? He almost smiled. Promise. The trial preparation consumed months. Maggie's recovered laptop proved to be the most devastating piece of evidence in the history of federal trafficking prosecutions. Transaction records going back 3 years. Names and addresses of buyers across 8 states and 4 countries. Financial routing through 17 shell companies. Coded communications that, once decrypted, read like the operational manual of a Fortune 500 company, except the product was children. Caldwell hired the most expensive defense team in the Northwest. 4 attorneys with a combined $800 an hour billing rate. They filed motion after motion to suppress evidence, to challenge jurisdiction, to discredit witnesses, to delay. Agent Reeves fought every motion with a ferocity that surprised even the prosecutors. She'd staked her career on this case. She'd gone over her supervisor's head. She'd worked with bikers and broken every protocol in the Bureau handbook. If Caldwell walked, she was finished. He wasn't going to walk. The dominoes started falling 3 weeks before trial. Caldwell's network, built on fear and money, began to crumble from the bottom up. Lower-level operatives cut deals. Transporters turned informant. 3 of the 6 guards from the warehouse agreed to testify in exchange for reduced sentences. Each one provided another piece of the puzzle, another name, another connection. Laura Whitmore was arrested in Tucson, Arizona, trying to cross into Mexico. She had $300,000 in cash, a fake passport, and a laptop containing meticulous files on over 200 families she'd assessed. Detailed notes on which children were most vulnerable, most isolated, most likely to disappear without triggering a serious investigation. The prosecution team showed Jack the files. He read them in a conference room at the federal building, page after page of clinical assessment. Family stability, low. Support network, minimal. Child supervision, inconsistent. Primary caregiver, single mother, night shift. Target viability, high. Target viability, like a real estate evaluation, like a market analysis. Jack read Emma's file. Whitmore had rated her premium acquisition. Blonde, blue-eyed, healthy, no medical issues. Parents financially stressed. Limited support network. Child frequently unsupervised during park visits. He set the file down and walked out of the room and didn't speak to anyone for 2 hours. Then Reynolds, the corrupt FBI assistant director, was found dead in his cell, hanged himself with his bedsheets. He left no note. The investigation into his death was brief and unsatisfying, raising more questions than it answered. But 3 days later, a man Jack had never met appeared at the Iron Forge. Bull spotted him first. Suit at the door, nervous, won't give his name. Jack found a man in his mid-50s standing beside a rental car, shifting his weight from foot to foot. Gray hair, expensive clothes, eyes red from crying. "Help you?" Jack said. "My name is Thomas Reynolds. My brother was FBI Assistant Director William Reynolds." Jack's expression hardened. "You've got 30 seconds to tell me why I shouldn't throw you off this property." "Because I have something you need to see. Something about my brother, about why he did what he did." "He did it for money." "No," Thomas's voice cracked. "That's what everyone thinks. But it isn't. Please, just listen. 10 minutes, then I'll leave and never come back." Jack studied the man, saw genuine grief, genuine shame, something desperate and broken underneath the expensive clothes. "Talk." Thomas's story came out in fragments, interrupted by tears he couldn't control. William wasn't always corrupt. He was a good man, a good agent. 22 years ago, he was investigating a trafficking case in Portland. Got close. Too close. They took his daughter. Jack went very still. Emily, she was 8. They sent William a video and a message. "Back off or she dies." He backed off. He buried the case. He thought if he cooperated, they'd give her back. They didn't. They said if he ever went after them again, if he ever helped anyone who investigated them, they'd release the video of what they'd done to Emily. Thomas's voice dissolved. He turned away, shoulders shaking. "They owned him," Jack said quietly. 22 years. 22 years of covering up their crimes, burying cases, redirecting investigations, blocking warrants, all because he couldn't face what had happened to his daughter, all because they held that video over his head like a knife. "Where is Emily now?" Thomas couldn't speak for a moment. "She died in one of their facilities. She was 9 years old. William never found out exactly when. They just stopped sending updates. And he kept working for them anyway, because by then, he was in too deep to get out. The parking lot was silent, except for the wind. "Why are you telling me this?" Jack asked. "Because you lost a daughter too. Because I read about Sophie. Because my brother spent 2 decades enabling the people who destroyed your family. I thought you deserved to understand." "Understanding doesn't fix anything." "I know." Thomas reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "This is from William. He wrote it the night before he died. It's addressed to you." Jack took the envelope. His hands felt numb. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Thomas said. "What William did is unforgivable. But maybe understanding helps. Or maybe it doesn't. I just needed you to know." He got in his car and drove away. Jack stood in the parking lot holding the envelope for a long time. Then he opened it. A single page, handwritten. The penmanship was shaky. "Mr. Mercer, by the time you read this, I'll be dead. I'm taking the coward's way out because I can't face the families of all the children I failed to save. You asked through Agent Reeves why I did it. The answer is simple. I did it because I was afraid. Because I thought protecting my daughter meant surrendering to the people who took her. I was wrong. She died anyway, and my cowardice let them take hundreds more. Sophie would be 32 this year. Emily would be 30. They'll never grow up, never fall in love, never have children, and I could have stopped the people who killed them. I had the power, the position, the information, but I was too broken to use it. You weren't broken. You turned your grief into something that saved lives. I turned mine into something that destroyed them. P.S. There's a safety deposit box at Helena First National. Key taped to the back of this letter. Inside, you'll find everything I never had the courage to use. Names, dates, operations, the complete architecture of the network going back 15 years. Use it. Do what I couldn't. William Reynolds. Jack turned the letter over. A small key was taped to the back. He walked into the clubhouse. "Maggie, get Agent Reeves on the phone. Now." The safety deposit box changed everything. Reynolds had kept meticulous records. A dead man's insurance policy that became, in death, the weapon he'd never had the courage to use in life. Names and dates going back 15 years. Operational details for trafficking routes across the entire Northwest. Financial records tying the network to legitimate businesses, political donors, and public officials. State legislators, police chiefs, a county judge, 2 school board members, a hospital administrator who had been falsifying medical records for trafficked children. 47 additional arrests over the next 6 months. Each one sent shockwaves through communities that had believed their leaders were good people. The network's roots had spread further and deeper than anyone imagined, touching every institution designed to protect the vulnerable and twisting them into instruments of predation. But for Jack, the most important thing in Reynolds' box wasn't the names or the financial records. It was a file labeled Victims, Confirmed Locations. And inside that file, a page that made his hands shake so badly he had to set it down. Sophie Mercer, age 12, taken, Billings, Montana, transported, Route 7 to Portland, Oregon. Final location, private cemetery, Northern California. Plot unmarked. He stared at the page. 20 years. 20 years of not knowing where his daughter's body was. 20 years of imagining. 20 years of driving past cemeteries and wondering if she was there, if she was anywhere, if she'd just been thrown away like trash. And now he knew. He called Reeves. His voice was steady, his eyes were not. "I need you to send a forensics team to Northern California. Private cemetery. The coordinates are in Reynolds' files." "Jack, what?" "Sophie, my daughter. Reynolds documented where they buried her." Silence on the line. A long silence. Then Reeves's voice, soft in a way he'd never heard from her. "I'll send the team today." "DNA confirmation?" "I'll fast-track it personally." "Thank you, Diana." It was the first time he'd used her first name, The first time she'd heard him sound like something other than a man at war. Jack, when we find her, when we bring her home, you should know something. Reynolds's files have confirmed locations for 31 additional victims. Children who were never found. Families who never got answers. 31. Plus the 11 from the warehouse. Plus the 3 Reeves's team had recovered from a secondary location Caldwell gave up during interrogation. 45 children. 45 lives. I'll let you know when we have Sophie, Reeves said. And Jack, she'd be proud of you. Any father who does what you've done, she'd be proud. The DNA confirmation came through 17 days later. Reeves called him at 7 in the morning. We found her, Jack. It's confirmed. We're bringing her home. He sat on his kitchen floor for an hour. Just sat there. Couldn't move. Couldn't think. The kitchen tiles were cold against his legs and he didn't care. 20 years of searching and the search was over. 20 years of not knowing, and now he knew everything. Where she'd been taken, how she'd been transported, where she'd ended up. The entire horrible journey mapped out in a dead man's handwriting. Sophie was coming home. The trial of Howard Caldwell began on a gray Monday morning in October. The prosecution presented evidence for 6 days straight. Financial records, testimony from cooperating witnesses, Maggie's recovered database, victim statements from children now safe with their families. Reynolds's files, authenticated by FBI forensic analysts. Jack testified on the 3rd day. He sat in the witness box in a borrowed suit that didn't fit his shoulders and told the story from the beginning. Emma bursting through the door, the terror in her eyes. The man with the fake smile and the wallet full of identities. The mattress in the van. The messages on the phone, the investigation, the compound, the warehouse, 11 children on a concrete floor. The prosecutor guided him through each event with careful, precise questions. Mr. Mercer, at any point during this investigation, did you take the law into your own hands? We gathered information and shared it with federal authorities. We provided assistance when those authorities asked for it. When children's lives were in immediate danger, and the legal system couldn't respond fast enough, we acted to protect them. Some would argue you should have left this to law enforcement. Law enforcement was compromised. The FBI's own assistant director was on the network's payroll. Cases were being buried. Warrants were being blocked. If we'd waited for the system, those 11 children would be on another continent right now. The defense team spent 2 hours trying to tear him apart. They attacked his character, his criminal record, his associates, the Hells Angels' reputation. They suggested the club had fabricated evidence, planted the laptop, coerced witnesses. Jack answered every question the same way, calm, direct, unshakable. Then the prosecution called its final witness. Emma Dawson walked into the courtroom holding her mother's hand. She was 6 now. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She wore a blue dress that Karen had bought specifically for this day. She looked small against the massive courtroom, but her eyes were steady. She took the oath in a clear voice. The prosecutor, Angela Martinez, crouched to Emma's level. Emma, can you tell us about the day the man took you from the park? Emma nodded. She told the story simply, the way children do, without drama, without embellishment, just the facts as she remembered them. The candy that tasted weird, the world going blurry, waking up in a car she didn't recognize, the man who called her sweetie in a voice that made her skin hurt. And when you escaped, Martinez asked gently, why did you run into the iron forge? Because it was the only door I could see. Were you afraid of the men inside? Yes, my mommy told me bikers were dangerous. But you went in anyway. Why? Emma thought about it, really thought, the way 6-year-olds do when they're taking a question seriously. Because the bad man was more dangerous, and I thought maybe the bikers could be scary for the bad man instead of for me. The courtroom was absolutely silent. And were they scary for the bad man? Emma smiled, the first real smile she'd shown since taking the stand. They were the scariest. He cried and tried to run away, and Mr. Jack promised to keep me safe. He said, Promise, promise. What does promise, promise mean? It means a real promise, the kind you keep no matter what. Even when it's hard, even when it's scary, you keep it anyway. And did Mr. Mercer keep his promise? Emma looked across the courtroom and found Jack in the gallery. Their eyes met. 6 years old and 59 years old. The little girl who started everything and the broken man she'd put back together. He's still keeping it, she said. He kept it for me. Then he kept it for 11 other kids. And he's going to keep it forever. Because that's what he does. Martinez let the silence hold. Then she said quietly, "No further questions." The jury deliberated for 11 hours. When they came back, the foreman's hands were shaking. Guilty. All 63 counts. Trafficking, conspiracy, bribery, obstruction, accessory to murder. Howard Caldwell would spend the rest of his life in a federal prison. No possibility of parole. The courtroom erupted. Families of rescued children clutched each other. Agents who'd worked the case for years let out breaths they'd been holding for months. Media cameras flashed. Jack sat in his chair and didn't move. Danny put a hand on his shoulder. Neither of them spoke. Outside the courthouse, cameras and microphones formed a wall. Jack had agreed to make one statement. Just one. 20 years ago, I lost my daughter Sophie to people like Howard Caldwell. I spent a long time angry about that, a long time broken. Then a 5-year-old girl ran into my bar and asked for help. And she reminded me that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about asking for help even when you're terrified, even from the scariest people you can find. He paused. The crowd was silent. Emma Dawson trusted us, a bunch of bikers who looked like the villains in every story she'd ever been told. She trusted us because she had no other choice. And we tried, God, we tried, to be worthy of that trust. 14 children are home tonight because of what started that day. That's not justice. Justice would mean none of this ever happened. But it's something. He looked directly into the nearest camera. To any child watching this who's scared, who's being hurt, who thinks nobody will believe them, we believe you. And we're coming. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but we are coming. Because that's what family does. He turned away from the cameras and walked back to his brothers. They closed around him like a wall, leather and chrome and scarred hands, and together they walked to their motorcycles. The last thing the cameras caught was the back of Jack's vest, the Hells Angels patch, and below it, a new addition, a small guardian angel with motorcycle wings. Underneath, in silver thread, 2 words, for Sophie. They buried Sophie on a Sunday afternoon in late spring. Jack carried the casket himself for the last 30 feet. He wouldn't let anyone help. Bull tried. Danny tried. He shook his head and kept walking. She was his daughter. He was going to carry her home. The Steel Brotherhood, every Hells Angels member from the Montana chapter, and 47 more from chapters across 6 states, lined the road to the cemetery on their motorcycles. Engines off, helmets held against their chests, silent. The procession stretched for half a mile. Sophie was laid to rest beside her mother Elena, who had died of cancer 8 years after the abduction. The doctors called it breast cancer. Jack always believed it was grief. The body couldn't hold that much pain and keep functioning. Something had to break. Now they were together again, mother and daughter. The family he'd lost, reunited in the only way left. Emma Dawson stood between her parents, holding Jack's hand through the entire service. She didn't cry. She held on tight and stood straight and watched the casket lower into the ground with those ancient eyes. "Is Sophie happy now?" she whispered. "I think so, sweetheart. I think she's finally home. She waited a long time for you to find her." "Yeah, she did. But you didn't give up. That's the part that matters." Jack looked down at this 6-year-old girl who understood things most adults never would. "When did you get so smart?" "My mommy says I was born smart. My daddy says I was born stubborn. I think it's the same thing." Despite everything, the grief, the weight of 20 years, the casket in the ground, Jack almost laughed. Karen stepped forward when the service ended. She put her hand on Jack's arm. I didn't know Sophie, but I know what she did. Her memory saved 45 children. Her life meant something, Jack. Even the loss of it meant something because it made you into the man who wouldn't stop. I should have been faster. If I'd found the network sooner, stop. You did what no one else could. Not the police, not the FBI, not any system designed to protect children. You did it. A biker from Montana who lost his daughter and refused to let the world keep turning like it didn't matter. Jack didn't trust his voice. He just nodded. Ben shook his hand. The grip was firm, calloused, real. Family, Jack. That's what you are to us. Not a friend, not a hero. Family. After the crowd left, after the bikers rode away one by one, after the Dawson's truck disappeared down the road with Emma waving from the back window, Jack stood alone at the grave. He stood there until the sun started going down. "I'm sorry it took so long, baby girl," he said. "I'm sorry I wasn't there that day. I've said it 1,000 times and it's never enough and it's never going to be enough. But I need you to know what happened because I lost you." He pressed his palm against the cool marble of the headstone. 45 kids went home. 45 families got put back together. A network that stole children for 15 years got torn apart. And it started because a 5-year-old girl ran into my bar and I saw your face in hers. The wind moved through the cemetery, quiet, steady. I met her, Sophie. Emma. She's 6 now. Bravest human being I've ever known, and that includes every Marine I ever served with. She calls me her guardian angel. Can you believe that? Me, an angel. He wiped his eyes. She reminds me of you sometimes. That same stubbornness, that same fire, that same way of looking at you like she can see straight through to the truth. He straightened up, took a long breath. I'm not going to stop. As long as I'm breathing, I'm going to keep doing this. Every kid we save, every predator we put away, that's you. That's your legacy. That's what your life meant, and I'll carry it until I can't carry anything anymore. He placed his hand on the headstone one last time. I love you, Sophie. I'll see you again someday. But not yet. I've got work to do. He walked away as the last light faded. The months that followed changed everything. The Iron Forge was transformed. The main building stayed. Jack would never tear that down. Not the room where Emma first grabbed his leg. Not the floor that still bore the scuff marks from Briggs's tackle. But a new wing was added. Bright, warm, professional. A sign went up above the entrance. Angels Landing Community Center. Below it, in smaller letters, in memory of Sophie Mercer and all the children who didn't come home. After-school programs. Emergency shelter for children in crisis. Counseling services staffed by trauma specialists. Self-defense classes that Maggie taught with the same intensity she'd brought to Army intelligence. A rapid response hotline that connected directly to Agent Reeves's task force. Other Hells Angels chapters reached out. First Montana, then Wyoming, then Idaho, Colorado, Oregon, Washington. They wanted to know how to replicate the model, how to turn their clubs into something more than what the world assumed they were. Jack spent months on the road, traveling from chapter to chapter, sitting in back rooms with men who looked like him, scarred, tattooed, hardened by lives that most people couldn't imagine, and telling them the same thing. A 5-year-old girl ran into my bar because she was more afraid of the man chasing her than she was of us. She trusted us to save her life, and we did. That's who we can be. That's who we should have been all along. The movement grew. 12 chapters in 8 states established child protection protocols, partnerships with local law enforcement, tip lines, training programs, a network of rough men and women who rode motorcycles and wore leather and looked like hell's worst nightmare, and who had decided, collectively, that their power meant nothing if it wasn't used to protect the people who couldn't protect themselves. On the 1-year anniversary of Caldwell's conviction, they built a memorial garden behind Angel's Landing, a small space with a fountain and a low stone wall engraved with names, the names of children who hadn't been saved. Sophie, Emily Reynolds, 112 names in total, recovered from Reynolds's files and Caldwell's records. Each one a child, each one somebody's son or daughter, each one failed by every system designed to protect them. Jack stood before the gathered crowd, club members, families, law enforcement partners, community volunteers, the Dawsons front and center, and spoke the words he'd been carrying for weeks. These names are our failures, children we didn't reach in time, lives we couldn't save. They're here so we never forget, so we never think we've done enough, so we never get comfortable. He looked at the wall, at Sophie's name, at all of them. But they're also our purpose. Every one of these names is a reminder that right now, tonight, somewhere, a child needs help. And it's our job to answer. After the ceremony, families lingered. Rescued children played in the grass. Bull sat in a lawn chair reading a picture book to 3 toddlers who'd crawled into his lap uninvited. Snake was teaching a group of teenagers how to check tire pressure, explaining that self-reliance was the foundation of everything. Danny stood at the edge of the crowd, watching, that quiet soldier's vigilance that never fully turned off. Emma found Jack standing apart, watching it all. "Mr. Jack?" "Hey, Emma Bear." She was 7 now, taller, her hair was longer. She'd lost her 2 front teeth and the gap made her grin even fiercer. "Can I ask you something?" "Always. When I grow up, can I be like Maggie? Can I help save kids?" Jack crouched to her level. "You already saved kids, Emma. You saved them by being brave enough to run through that door. You saved them by trusting us when every part of you was terrified. You saved them by standing up in that courtroom and telling the truth. But I want to do more." "Then do more. Be whatever you want. FBI agent, lawyer, teacher, President of the United States. You don't need a motorcycle or a leather vest. You just need to keep being who you already are." Emma threw her arms around his neck. "I love you, Mr. Jack. I love you too, Emma Bear. Always will. Promise, promise?" "Promise, promise." His phone buzzed that night, a text from an unknown number. He tensed. Old reflex. The threat still lived in his body even though the network was destroyed. But the message wasn't a threat. "Mr. Mercer, you don't know me, but you saved my son. He was one of the 11 from the warehouse. His name is Tyler. He's home now. He started talking again last week. The first thing he said was, 'Nana.' The second thing he said was, 'The big man kept the bad people away.' I don't have words big enough for what you did, so I'll just say this. Because of you, I still have my grandson. Because of you, there's still good in this world. God bless you and your angels." Margaret Marsh, Tyler's grandmother. Jack read it 3 times. Then he saved it to a folder on his phone he'd created months ago. A folder labeled, "Why We Ride." There were hundreds of messages in that folder now, from parents, from children, from cops and social workers, and teachers and strangers who'd heard the story and needed Jack to know that it mattered. Hundreds of reasons to keep going. Hundreds of reasons to never stop. Years passed. The work continued. There were other cases, other networks, other children in danger. Some they saved, some they didn't. Each loss carved a new line on Jack's face, a new name on the memorial wall. Each rescue put something back. On a summer evening, 10 years after Emma burst through the door of the Iron Forge, Jack sat on the porch watching the Montana sunset. Emma was there, 16 now, fierce and brilliant, applying to college with a criminal justice major. Agent Reeves had already promised to mentor her through the FBI Academy. "Thinking about Sophie?" she asked. "Always. She'd be proud." "I hope so. I know so, because I'm proud of you. And everything I know about courage, I learned from her through you." Jack put his arm around her. This fierce young woman who'd been a terrified 5-year-old in a torn sundress, who'd run barefoot and bleeding into a room full of the scariest men she'd ever seen and asked them to save her life. "Sophie used to say something every morning when I left for work," Jack said. "She'd stand at the door and yell it after me like a little drill sergeant." "What did she say?" Be brave, Daddy, and come home. Emma leaned her head against his shoulder. That's what I'm telling you now, Jack. Whatever comes next, whatever fight is waiting, be brave and come home, because there's always going to be a place for you here. I know, he said. That's what family means. The sun went down, the stars came out over Montana, bright and endless. And somewhere in the darkness, a child needed help. A family needed saving. A predator needed to be stopped. And the angels would ride. Imperfect, unlikely, scarred and tattooed and loud and terrifying. Angels who looked like monsters, so the real monsters would be afraid. Angels who kept their promises. Angels who understood that family wasn't blood. It was choice, commitment, sacrifice, and love. As long as there were children who needed protecting, the Hell's Angels would ride. They always would, because that's what family does.